And there we go. What's up, y'all?
What's up? What's up? We finally made it.
We're here.
Right. Yeah, what's going on? Let's get into this thing. You got the lioness, Sadell Nicole, and
Carlita Nicole, the quirky queen herself, Chi-Town, born and bred, Texas fed. What's up? So, yes,
what's up?
like Sadell said, we're just going to dive right into it. I know we're a little bit late today, but y'all, let's get into this. Like, first of all, the Mavericks are playing the 76ers right now. During halftime, the Mavs are up 62-57. So, like, go Mavs. Here's the deal. I know we talked about this a little bit last week about the Dallas Mavericks and where we are in the midst of this playoff play-in tournament race. So I'm going to share the screen real quick so you guys can see what this is looking like and how tight this race is. Okay. Let's us see. So here we are. Look at where the Mavericks are at number 11. The play-in tournament is only teams 7 through 10. Okay, and we are currently at 37 wins, and we are tied with games behind as far as with the Thunder, but with the Lakers, we are half a game behind. We are a whole game behind with the Pelicans, who are currently in 8th place. So this race is super tight because right now we're not even in the play-in tournament. We are outside of the play-in tournament. This is definitely where the rest of our games for the rest of this season are. They're must-win games. We have to win these games. So this is the deal. I was looking at the rest of the season for the Dallas Mavericks. So after this game tonight, we play the Heat, the Hawks, the Kings, the Bulls, and the Spurs. We don't have an easy rest of season. We don't. But you know who does? The daggone Lakers.
Right, and they've already passed us. I mean, the last time we had to talk about this, they were behind us.
Yes.
And you know, but it just kind of works out though. I mean, the thing is, this race has been so close, you can't have any slip ups at this point. And we just had a couple that have cost us.
Absolutely. And right now, I know we talked about what we feel like Dallas is missing and so on and so forth. Right now, we just got to close games because once again, when we're losing, it's not like we're getting blown out. 9 times out of 10, we have a lead in the third or fourth quarter and we lose it at the end of the fourth quarter, and we're having to play to come back, and we're losing these games at the last minute of the games. So that's the frustrating part for me as a Mavericks fan, to watch us have a 17-point lead and lose it at the end of the fourth quarter in the last minute of the game. And that has happened consistently. And if you paid attention to those standings, Sadell, they have the last 10 games, your wins and losses in that. We are 3-7 from our last 10 games. Guess who else is 3-7? The last 2 teams, number 14 and 15, the ones that don't have a chance of even getting in the play-in tournament.
Well, and it goes back to kind of what you were saying. It's just being able to close out. So think about it. We beat the Lakers by 1 point, right?
Yeah.
Then the Grizzlies beat us by 4. Then the Warriors beat us by 2. The Hornets beat us by 8. And then they beat us again.
Yes, they did.
By 6 points, right? And so we're losing with, less than 5 to 10 points each
Yes,
game because we cannot close out a game. We beat the Lakers, we end up on a high, and then we lose 4 straight games. So
unacceptable.
yeah.
Unacceptable. Do you think that at the end of this season, if the say for instance the Mavericks do not make it into the play-in tournament, is there a possibility that people will be looking at Jason Kidd to blame?
I mean, people are looking at Jason Kidd now. To be honest, people talk about Jason Kidd not being a good coach. I don't think Jason Kidd is a bad coach. I just, there's only so much that he can do. I do feel like we don't necessarily have every piece that we need, and I mean, closing out a game has got to be some.
Oh, you got stuck there for a minute. Okay. So, like she said,
But you
okay,
can't
here
stop
we go.
anybody from scoring. Then it's going to be hard to win.
It
So even
is
if we
going to
get to the
be really
play in,
hard.
even if we get to the play in or the playoffs, without being able to stop somebody, like I don't know how far we're going to go.
Right. Right. I don't know how that's going to go. And that's frustrating as a Mavericks fan because it's like we have the talent. We have one of the best benches. Our bench can score. We have the rookie that we talked about last week, Hardy has come off the bench and doing incredible things, but it's just not equating to wins, and that's the problem. So Ant says the Mavs have one more year of underachieving before Luca demands a trade. By
But
any
see,
means
Luka just got that
necessary.
new contract. That
Yes,
new contract, like, has him till 2027. Like, it's going to be difficult for him to get out of that.
yes, absolutely. So y'all know this. I've shown you what this playoff race looks like. The West playoff race is super close. It's super close. So we're going to continue to follow up and see how this goes. We have, let's see, 5 games after tonight left for this season. These are all must-win games, like I've said, because it's so close. And says that contracts mean nothing anymore when it comes to stars demanding trades. And that's unfortunate because that's we could really lose out with the generational talent if we don't start winning playoff games. I really do think that Luca absolutely is going to want a shot at winning a ring. And if he feels like that he cannot do it here in the city of Dallas, then absolutely I think that he will demand a trade after this year. But hopefully we can keep him and Kyrie. Christian Wood, build off of Hardy. We have Hardaway. Like, we have some solid players on our team. It's just not equating to wins. Dang, doesn't this sound familiar? Like I'm talking about the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
What's up with our Dallas teams, y'all?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So moving forward, let's real quick because we're just gonna keep on moving. The Hall of Fame inductees for 2023. What does this class look like? Who are these people? Dwayne Wade, Dirk Nowitzki, Paul Gasol, uh Tony Parker, Becky Heyman, and Greg Popovich. So listen, check this out, Sadell. I know you may think this is cool too, because I definitely think this is super cool. But I do think that having Pop get inducted the same time as Tony Parker, who played for him for multiple championships, is so dope. But on top of that,
Especially.
Becky Heyman was the assistant coach of the Spurs for
Right.
years before she started head coaching for the Las Vegas Aces. So the Spurs, this is the Spurs year for the Hall of Fame. Isn't that dope?
Yeah, that is dope.
Yeah. Like, so congratulations to
Yeah,
all the inductees. Congratulations to our GOAT in Dallas, Dirk. He's there. He finally
yeah.
made it. Now, one day we hope to see Luca in there with the ring or two or three.
Girl, 2011 is a long time ago.
It was, but okay, all right. We gotta okay. So moving on. There's so much basketball going on, y'all, between March Madness, the NBA, and of course, let me tell you, I wasn't sure if we were going to get a chance to talk about this tonight. We're gonna go ahead and talk about it real quick. That
What?
McDonald's All American game that was played this week. Listen, y'all, I don't usually care to watch those because it's kind of all-star-ish. They don't really want to play, or if they're playing, they're trying to show out, and yeah, I'm not with that. This game that these young men played on both sides of the ball, East and the West, defense and offense, was incredible. The
Yes.
talent, the game, the coaching. Shout out to the DeSoto coach who coached the winning team. Y'all, this game, like it Bronny James didn't even start. Okay, so he wasn't a starter, but he came off the bench and shot multiple threes. Okay, the shooting in
He
this
did
game
well.
was,
He did well.
but across the board, the shooting was great. Not just that, one of the things in these types of games that you hardly ever see is our assists. You hardly ever see people passing the ball to other folks to get baskets because this is their time to shine. They want that individual spotlight. No, that did not happen. We saw assist after assist. We saw some great passes. We saw people getting the ball to the hole. Like, these young men were not afraid to go to the hole, to go to the basket. They were not afraid to play defense. They weren't afraid to take shots, NBA shots past the 3-point line. It was a great game. And so, like, I'm excited for this next class of athletes that are going into college. And then one of the young men is going to the G League. But it makes me happy to look forward to college basketball next season.
Yeah. Well, along that line, I want to give a special shout out to Ron Holland, who is actually the number one ranked
Yes,
player out of
yes,
Duncanville High School. And man, it's just been so cool to watch this dude evolve. Like
yes.
he is special. And he's going to the great University of Texas. He's going to be a Longhorn next year. And we also had Jacoby Walter, who's from McKinney at the Link Academy, that was playing in that game as well. But it was cool. And even with Ron, people are like, okay, he the number one ranked, let's see. But that dude was playing hard. He running coast to coast, getting ball. They were talking about how at one point he caught the ball at half court, literally took one dribble to get to the rim and dunk. Like, he's a special dude.
Yes,
And
yes.
yeah, I'm so proud of him. I'm really happy, like you said, and excited for these guys. And then even with Bronny, because Bronny gets a lot of backlash because he's LeBron's son. And even, when he was younger, I remember when he was like in 8th grade and people were like, oh, he's not that good. He's not that. I'm like, he's good.
Right.
Right. But y'all are expecting him to be his dad right now. But he's just grown and he's blossomed and he's coming to his own. And all of that has just been cool to watch.
Absolutely. So I heard a conversation a few days ago that sparked my interest about these NBA players and their sons. And just basically saying that, like for instance, if I don't know, in any other career, that if I'm a top executive in my field, in my business, then it'd be easy for me to get my kid hired on. And I could just, hey, put a word in and boom, there you go. You can't do that with athletics. You can't do that in the sports realm because regardless of who Bronny James is, he still has to earn his keep. He still has to work out. He still has to go and score baskets. He still has to play defense. He
I
still
mean,
has to put the work in. All of these kids, there were 4 legacy players that were playing in this game. And they didn't get to the McDonald's All-American game because off the backs of their fathers. They got there because they put in the work, their own individual talent. If they weren't any good, they wouldn't be there. And so that to me gives them even more credit. Like I don't have to follow in my dad's footsteps, but if I do follow in his footsteps, I'm gonna prove my own worth.
that they do get some benefit of the doubt because of their parents. And I'm not saying they're not good, but there's good. I mean, I'm just saying, like, there are kids that are really good in this country who would not have gotten the opportunity that Bronny or some of those other kids got just because of that. I'm just saying there are kids that could have been interchanged with some of those players on that team. And and then even case in point, think about Deion. Even before Deion was a coach, schools that he had input on, schools that he put money into, whether he was coaching or whether he was moving his son, even from a high school perspective, his kids got the benefit of him. Think about his older son who was at SMU. He wasn't
not saying that there's not a benefit to a name.
I'm saying they do have to play. They do have, but they get an edge just because. So I'm saying if you have KJ Lewis and Bronny James and they're somewhat equally matched in talent, and I got to choose one, then they're more than likely going to choose Bronny, and that's just how that's going to work.
I get that part, but like I said, he still has to hold his own weight. He still has to get out there and perform. And if he doesn't, then those opportunities will end up being few and far between. He still has to show up. And if he doesn't, it's a wrap. It's not like the NBA is not going to gift him a position on a team because he's LeBron's son. He still has to be good.
I'm just saying I'm not sure that won't happen. And I'm not saying that he's not good, but I'm saying the exceptional talent that everyone else is going to have to get the opportunities that he has is different.
Okay. I can dig it. I can dig it. So, okay. While we're talking about high school basketball, let's get into college basketball and March Madness, which has been a lot of madness.
Golly,
break down the men first, Adele, because first of all, we have 2 games coming up with the Final Four for the men's is Saturday. The championship will be this upcoming Monday. So Florida Atlantic, a number 9 seed, ended up beating K-State, which I had K-State in the Final Four, but they beat K-State, and that hurt because K-State was on a roll, okay? And they're playing San Diego State. Miami, who beat Texas, and that should not have happened. That hurt. Right. That was a hard loss to watch. They will be playing UConn. So you've seen Florida Atlantic constantly beat teams that they had no business beating. Do you think they're going to get past San Diego State?
This is the one thing I know about Florida Atlantic and San Diego State. Whoever has to play them is going to have to fight because both of those teams are extremely aggressive and extremely physical. And that in itself, that game is going to be a dogfight. Like I really, and then, I mean, I have no San Diego State or Florida Atlantic in the Final Four.
Me neither.
And I didn't have Miami in the Final Four, to be honest. But I mean, brackets just blown and thrown away, like just trash them mugs. Like I don't even know. It's just kind of everything Alabama got knocked in the head and everything. I mean, it was just the
Right.
wildest thing. But the thing
Hey,
that I've
I
been
know
saying for the past couple of years is what happens is that you get with because of the transfer portal, because of the COVID year, because of all of that extra stuff that's happening, kids who would normally be at Alabama or Duke or who would
yeah,
normally be at these top
yeah,
schools, they're at these mid-major schools,
yeah,
right? So it kind of evens the playing field a little bit
yeah.
because now these kids who can actually go then been at these smaller schools, whereas before they wouldn't be there.
Right,
Before it wouldn't be a conversation as far as UConn and those guys because they would always have the top guys, right? But now
right,
some of these smaller San Diego schools are getting some of the players that those other
yes.
schools kind of passed up on because they in the portal getting those older players. And so I think for the next few years, it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out because, I think Alabama maybe underestimated things a little bit and,
Oh,
things just kind of
absolutely.
start getting thrown off. I think Texas kind of got out of sorts and went away from stuff that they were doing and then, they got knocked off. But yeah, the brackets are crazy.
Yes, Andre, they are. I read a stat that said after Purdue was knocked out
Yeah.
in that first round that there were no perfect brackets left. And I was still hopeful that Texas was going to beat Miami because I had Texas in the final four for two of three of my brackets. And I was like, yeah, go Texas. And for 3 quarters, it was like, go Texas. And then I don't know what the heck happened at the end of that game.
Yeah, they just kind of went away from the stuff that got them into the game. They just kind of went away from stuff, and then it's almost like they started playing selfish. Like they weren't going back to the people who had scored. They were they didn't they went away from playing the stuff that got them there. They started playing like hero ball. Like I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And yeah, it didn't work out.
But okay, so even though my beloved Texas still hook 'em is not in the final four, we still have, like I said, Florida Atlantic versus San Diego State. And I saw Benji said that San Diego looks like the best team left. Um, Miami versus UConn. I have, I think this may be the end of the road for Florida Atlantic. And I have UConn and San Diego State in the championship and UConn winning it all. Who you got?
I have San Diego State and UConn as well, but I don't know,
Really?
man. Okay, not from my original bracket. Is that what you mean? I'm
No.
talking about
But
now.
right now, yes.
But yeah, man, I don't know. San Diego State is on a roll. It's going to be an interesting championship game.
Will
At
be.
this point, these predictions kind of have been going out the window. Florida
Yes.
Atlantic is going to give them a game. I do feel like San Diego State is going to win. I feel like UConn is going to win, but I'm kind of up in the air to be honest on that game.
Okay.
But
Okay.
if Miami somehow gets past UConn, I do not think they can get past San Diego State. If UConn wins, UConn will have a better chance of beating San Diego than Miami.
Okay. I could dig that. So, okay, real quick. The women. First of all, let me tell you, there hasn't
Sure.
been a women's game in the tournament that I have been looking this much forward to, like in forever. I'm so looking forward to this the Iowa State and South Carolina game for so many different reasons. Of course, I love Don Staley. I love her as
Yes,
a player. I love her as a coach. She's just exuding goatish. She really is.
for sure. Yep.
And I love Aaliyah Boston on her team. She's the player of the year last year. Now they're saying Iowa State's Caitlin Clark will be. So let me tell you about Miss Caitlin Clark because just everywhere with these stats. She had a 41-point triple double. She's the first player in D1 history to amass 900 points and 300 assists in a single season. I didn't say the first woman player. I said
Player.
first D1 player. That's in NCAA history, okay? Magic Johnson came up and was like,
Yeah.
not even me. I couldn't even do a 40 plus point triple double team. Michael Jordan didn't do it. Larry Bird didn't do it.
Right.
Um the game, let me tell you what, because it's also about the numbers. We always talk about women's sports and people not supporting them. The Iowa State versus Louisville game drew more viewers than any NBA on ESPN this season. So it's not that people don't want to watch women's basketball. That's not the case. We just need to put more money into marketing and promotion and et cetera, et cetera. People want to see players like Caitlin Clark play. This game between Iowa State and South Carolina is going to be monumental. To me, this is the championship game.
Exactly. That's what I was
It
going to
really
say.
is. The other game is Virginia Tech and LSU. And that's going to be, I believe that'll be a good game too. But I feel like regardless of who wins between Virginia Tech and LSU, that we're seeing a championship game in this Final Four between Iowa State and South Carolina with the two best players. Yes,
Yeah.
between Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston. But who's going to win that game though?
I'm still Team Dawn, and
Yep.
I just feel like those girls play so freaking hard for her. You know what I'm saying? And on top of that, they did actually name Caitlin as the Player of the Year today. So it was formalized that she's the Player of the Year. So now I feel like that also gives them another reason to play harder. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Aaliyah Boston. You know, like, because Dawn Staley in an interview the other day was basically talking about her and was saying, regardless, she is the greatest player in the NCAA right now. You know what I'm saying? And so, okay, Caitlin won, and I feel like that's going to make them play even harder. Aaliyah's going to come out even harder. I don't see anybody beating them. I just don't. And I do agree that this, to me, is going to be the championship game. Yeah. And whoever's playing on the other side, everybody's like LSU. First of all, they've already beaten LSU. Just like everybody was talking about the other game. So I don't feel like, and I don't think they'll take it for granted, you know, and it's a championship game. I think they'll be up for it, but I don't feel to me, the concern is not going to be with LSU, you know, and this game, if they get past the game Friday, if they get past that game on Friday, then LSU or Virginia Tech, either one, whoever it ends up being, I just feel like, you know, hey, we're going to go ahead and take that.
The buck stops there.
And to be honest, even if Iowa wins, I feel like they'll win it all. Whoever wins this game, but I just feel like South Carolina is going to win it.
I definitely do too. So one of the things that I did hear in all these hearing and reading articles and stuff is that this is possibly one of the greatest women's basketball collegiate teams of all time.
For sure. I agree. I mean,
okay.
Amazing. It's amazing. And it's not even just the team, it's the coaching staff. It's the whole collective unit that makes this team so special. Yes. UConn has had some great teams. Baylor has had some great teams. Yeah. But it's just something different about this team.
Yeah. Absolutely. That I out of all of the games in the Final Four, men's and women's, no lie, the South Carolina and Iowa State women's game is the one hands down that I'm looking forward to the absolute most, even more than the championship games, because I really do feel like this is going to be championship ish. Okay. And I'm so
Right.
looking forward to
Yes.
it. So I say, guys, ladies, men, everybody, watch these women's games, support these women's athletes, because I promise you, the more people watch, and the more that these networks see, oh, people are interested, they're going to watch women's basketball more than the NFL, then maybe they'll think twice about putting them on television more, putting more advertising money and marketing behind them. Support women's basketball.
Right.
Okay, so we talked about March Madness. We talked about a lot of different things. I have one other thing to discuss with you guys. So, first of all, before we discuss it, I'm gonna go ahead and show a clip. I'm not gonna show the whole video. I'm just gonna
Y'all disconnect from the internet. Disconnect from the internet. My thing
I'm
is
just
messing up.
gonna show a clip quickly. And I'm only going to show maybe about 50 seconds of this clip, and then we're going to talk about it and discuss it. And boom, here we go.
On this consent. Remember we went over consent? Yes, sir. Good. You're with a young lady. She has to consent to every act. So if you were in the car with her and something went down in the car, that does not mean that something has to go down at the apartment. If y'all did something in the car, that does not mean something else has to happen. That next day, you cannot assume that it is okay to send a dick or something like that. If you're in study hall and a trackster walks by you and she's got tights on and she's going to study, you can say, look at that fat. That's harassment. She has every right to turn around and press charge against you. If you're not quite sure what the fuck to say, picture it being your little sister or your mother, and then shut what you call the fuck up. Are we clear? Yes, sir. Spring break.
Okay. So I shared that video for a couple of different reasons. That was a football coach from TCU, and he was speaking specifically about consent. So to add more context to that video, it seems like this was just a small clip of a larger conversation that he was having with these players before they left for spring break. So he not only spoke about consent, but he also talked about drinking and driving. He talked about the players remaining healthy and coming back safely because there are people at the school and their family who love and care about them. He also spoke about there was one other subject that he talked about: the drinking and driving and the consent and drug use. So he had brought up the fentanyl, because here in Dallas, there have been a whole bunch of cases about kids getting fake fentanyl and ODing. And he just basically told the boys, don't take anything from anybody, not uh, random people, not people at a bar. Don't do that, because it's too many things out here happening with drugs. And for me, listening to that message, I definitely took it as, this is a coach who cares about his players. This is a coach that's having preventative measures, taking preventative measures versus being reactive post something horrible happening with one of his players, or spring break or whatever the situation is, and saying, hey, before you all leave this facility, these are the things I want you to be mindful of. And for me, it is unfortunate that we have to have these types of conversations this day and age. It really is. However, it is, to me, a necessity, because when conversations are had like this in high school and in college, these players are more mentally prepared when it comes to the pros. And then you see people like John Moran and brandishing guns and stuff on social media. If he, I'm not sure if his college coach had conversations like this about what's appropriate and what's inappropriate. But what if those things happen more often than not between coaches in high school and in college, then I do feel like professionally you don't have to worry about as many cases. The whole Deshaun Watson situation, things like that, where we sometimes we have conversations and we think, oh, consent is common sense. But what if it was these fellas' first time ever hearing an adult tell them something like this? Their parents may not have ever educated them, or they may not have had anybody else care enough to have these conversations. But Sadell, what did you get from the message? Do you feel like the message was appropriate? What do you believe? What do you think about the delivery of the message?
No, I mean, I definitely think it's appropriate. And it is like, you know, people do make assumptions that they know things that they may not know. And then it's not even just that, it's reinforcing stuff over and over and over and over.
Yes.
Because, you know, kids these days, not just boys, they think about right now. They don't think about decisions. Right. And on my board at school, I said decisions that you make today will affect you for the rest of your life.
Yes.
And they don't think about that. There's this one kid, I talk to him every single day about going to class. He's at school every single day, but he's never in class. And he was like, well, I'm passing, I'm doing this, but you won't get credit for it because you don't go to class.
Right.
But every day, I stress the importance. And so little things that, like you said, we might assume that they would understand that it's common sense. It's not common to them. Right. Stuff that they don't think about. Well, I'm passing the class, but you won't get credit because you haven't attended the class. You know what I'm saying? Right. And just reinforcing it. And I think hearing it from him, like sternly, and, you know, because I mean, he's talking to them like, hey, this is my kid, and I need you to understand there are consequences to these actions. Right. There's things that could happen, because if she says that she wants to press sexual harassment charges, they'll be like, nah, you can't do that. I didn't even say nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're thinking I didn't touch her. I didn't do, you know, there's a lot of stuff that can happen.
Right.
Just doing stuff that you think is normal boy stuff.
Right.
That can get you in trouble and jeopardize your future, you know? And so now I think it's important to have those conversations, and it's important to reinforce those conversations. It's important to give them the perspective from either point of view so that they'll have an understanding. So if it does happen, you know, man, my coach told me that. It can't be like, man, I don't know, I never heard of it. And that's not to say that they won't make those mistakes.
Right.
It's not to say that things won't happen, but at least giving them the perspective so they understand and know that, you know, these are things that can happen and you got to be aware of it, and just keep reinforcing the message.
So Ant says the coach's point to the kids was to avoid getting in trouble. The boys also need to be told to respect women in the first place. And I get that. And I feel like to a certain degree, he kind of talked about it a little bit when he mentioned that
your sister.
Like, yes, this is, if this is your sister, if this was your mother. But he also said that a woman, this is a woman's decision, and a woman has a right to change her mind. And to me, it may not have been, oh, respect a woman, that's morally correct, but he did emphasize the fact that a woman has the right to make her decisions, or her own decisions, and change her mind if she wanted to. And him bringing up the mother and the sister as well. If you don't know, think about your mother and your sister. How do you want them to be treated? How do you want them to be respected? That's how you treat women. So I don't feel like he missed that part of the respecting women. I just feel like in the short clip that we saw, he pointed out a lot of different things, and I think he got the point across, even if he didn't come out and blatantly say respect women, I still feel like it was sprinkled there in the message. Do you think so?
I agree. Yeah.
So like I said, I hate the fact that we have to have these conversations with our kids, you know, and especially athletes. But it is a necessity at this day and age, because think about it. What the culture was 30 years ago is not the culture now. We are in the midst of Me Too movements where it is, you can't look at a woman the wrong way. You can't say anything inappropriate. And remember, back in the day, a man could walk past and hit a woman on her behind and there not be any consequences. They used to whistle. Remember the music videos and stuff where women would walk past and the men would cat call and whistle and make comments about her body and stuff. That stuff was celebrated. But nowadays it is not, and it is inappropriate. And so it's good that this coach cares enough about his players to sit them down and say, hey, let me give you some real world education so that you are prepared when you leave these walls. Because to me, that shows that he cares about them beyond just basketball. To me, it's bigger than that.
And I think even more than that, I mean, back in the day, coaches covered up stuff. You know what I'm saying? So the boys were doing stuff that was inappropriate, but they would rather jeopardize the kid and not teach him and just cover it up so they could win the game. And that happened a lot in the past, even from coaching staff. Go back to Penn State, probably about a decade ago. That coach is literally molesting these players. Other coaching staff members knew about it. The boys didn't want to talk about it, but they hid that for a very long time. Yeah. And so stuff has happened, and it wasn't necessarily, you know, they just didn't talk about it because they hid it. So it wasn't like the coaches were like, hey, y'all better not do this and they didn't want to have that conversation because then they'd have to admit something was wrong in their program. So instead of having that conversation with everybody, they telling, oh no, make sure you do such and such and keep him over here, and you know, like creating alibis and things like that. So now it's at a point where, hey, we got to get a hold of this, because it's not like this stuff is new as far as athletes in general doing things and having bad behavior and doing things and being inappropriate with women or each other. But it's just, yeah.
Okay, so Matthew was saying that as someone who's hands-on with a lot of kids, some of the things I have to correct them about and teach them is absolutely absurd that I even have to correct them. And he chews out parents, especially weak fathers. Ed says there's controversy now over an Alabama basketball player being allowed to continue playing even though he was involved in an incident where a woman died.
So the thing is, that's also crazy with that. Like, I don't know, golly, what school was it? Well, there was an incident for one where this kid had brought a gun to school. And I was actually talking to a teacher today at another school, and he was getting on to this kid, and he called the mom, and you know, the kid was trying to act all tough or whatever. And so he told the kid, like, don't be talking to your mama like that. And the mama started going off on him, saying, you sitting there acting tough. You ain't tough. You let somebody take my gun off you. Right. So she had given him a gun and was like, you know, you sorry because you let somebody take the gun from you. And then we had the instance where there was another kid who had brought a gun, and she not mad that he brought the gun. She mad that he in the police car is being like, some of the parents, I agree, like, make situations so much worse. And a lot of times they have kids when they're very young, and so they still living their whole life, and these kids are raising themselves, and they have no concept of self-respect, human respect, normalcy, morals. They don't, because they don't see it. Right. And there's just a lot of stuff that they are learning trial by error. And so it is important that we not make assumptions that they're learning it. And that's, I mean, it's unfortunate that parents are not raising their kids properly. And sometimes in some families, it's generations and generations that just keeps
Yeah.
continuing to happen. And it just kind of gets passed down. And it's sad and but that's why we have to kind of step up and do the things that we have to do to kind of help that, because leaving the state of the world in the hands of some of these kids is, yeah,
Yes.
we're gonna have,
Right.
there's a lot of stuff we have to fix. But
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. And I agree with Matthew that, it's a lot of it does have to do with parenting. Absolutely. What's allowed and what's not allowed, and then teaching our children, because I've watched parents who just let their kids figure it out as opposed to showing them how to do something. And that's frustrating for me. I left the profession of education and teaching because the kids were so disrespectful and their parents justified it.
and then even with that, you have some parents that are working 2 or 3 jobs,
Hmm.
and then the kid is raising themselves because of that. Like the
Right,
parent is literally never home, and the kid is just there living life, doing whatever, smoking, drinking, partying, because they have a lot of excess freedom.
right,
And
right,
a kid that doesn't have any restraint doesn't really have any fear. And so if you're living your life without fear of anything, especially without fear of consequence, then there's really no limit to what you would do.
right, right. And that's so unfortunate. So unfortunate. But we'll keep you guys posted and keep you guys like in these conversations, because they're definitely interesting conversations to us, and we love discussing them with you guys as well. Um, that's Matthew has one more comment. He said the problem is parents allow their kids to be raised by their phone and everything on the web more than them. And he's saying he's considered strict by some parents, but their children respect me more than them. Dang, parents just try too hard to be their children's friends, not realizing the kids respect them when you correct them. I do agree with that. Kids do respect you when you correct them if they feel like it's coming from a place of love and a place of true concern. If they feel like you don't like them, they are not trying to hear you. They are not. So at the end of the day, correction with love and nourishment, absolutely is.
And even with the internet stuff, to be honest, on the phone, because even with Jace, like he'll be watching Coco Melon, and then it'll turn into Coco Melon at night. You know what I'm saying? Like they will make kid videos that have very, very inappropriate content. And if
Yeah,
you don't monitor that,
yeah,
like there are literally second and third graders at school doing sexual acts.
yeah,
And a lot of it stems from them just constantly being on their phone, being on social media, and there's a lot of stuff that they see that they shouldn't see. And there's a lot of crazy people who would
hmm,
take something very innocent for a child and twist it into something that gets by filters on YouTube because it's in the form of a very innocent thing.
right.
And so,
So
yeah, I
unfortunate.
mean, you do, and it is, and I mean, and the thing is, there are a lot of parents who, for whatever reason, don't want to punish their kids. For whatever reason, they want to be friends, and it's hard, But if they don't learn consequence, God, it's just, there's just like no limit to what they'll do.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Consequences definitely need to be had. Middle school and high school, college. So when it's time for the pros, these players are mentally and emotionally prepared. And I think this TCU coach he has the right idea.
Right.
So that's all I have for tonight. Do you have anything else, Adele?
I have nothing else. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and hanging out with us tonight. We got a little bit of a late start, but thank you for hanging with us. If no one told you they love you this week, just know that we really love and appreciate you. Hope you enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you guys.
Yep.